Hey guys, Kiki Cigar Guy here. I'm going to show you a couple of things with weak auras real quick, just some basics to get you going. We're on our Shaman today, and we want to do a couple things with one with Stormstrike and then one with Lava Lash with a little bit of a complexity added to it. I'm going to show you the real basic stuff here, and then we'll get through a video series where we start doing some more and more complex stuff. If you guys have any weak auras you want to do or you want me to do for you, I'm always happy to set those up and give you the string for them. I'm not going to do everything, but we'll compile a little list so you guys have some stuff you can go to for ease of use. But we're going to go ahead and get started here. The basic things you want to do with Weak Aura, once you've got it open, once you've got it downloaded, installed, /WA is the command to open and close the basic box here. It lets you see everything you've got going. You can see what you've loaded, what's not loaded currently, and then you can have options to make new ones as well. When you're doing a new one, there's a few options you have. One is a progress texture. That's, for example, you've got Bloodlust up and you want to know how long it lasts, but you want to do it visually instead of with an icon. You can do that. It shows this picture of this fading sun orb here. So, for example, you've got heroism or Bloodlust on 30 seconds. It starts at 30 up here, and then it'd be 15 here, and then it'd be 0 at the bottom. The other one is you can do a texture. So if you got something that procs and you want to see a big flash on your screen with a pretty little graphic to get you going, and you know when that's up and ready to hit, you can do a texture. So anytime you've seen things like, if you're familiar with a shaman, when your lightning bolt procs and you've got 5 Maelstrom stacks, you'll get a big lightning bolt across the top of your screen right in this area. And that's an example of what a texture would look like, and you can set those on a trigger. So that anytime you have something that procs and you want to know it's up, you get a nice, big, pretty, flashy texture there. The dynamic groups, they're a little bit more complex. We won't get into those right now. You're, of course, welcome to explore on your own. There's some really neat stuff you can do with them. But for the most part, you can do everything you'd ever need to do with everything else that's here. The model's a neat feature. You can set up, for example, your warrior. Your execute's procced. You want to see a big Lich King on your screen. It's fairly memory heavy. I don't recommend it for lower end computers. But execute's up. It's time to execute. You want to see the Lich King do a little dance on your screen, or spin in a circle is what he would actually do. But you get the idea. Then that would pop up, and you'd know to execute. There's a lot of 3D models they have to choose from, a lot of really neat stuff. It's always good to download this mod and go through and look at everything you can do. The other would be a group control. Group control, it kind of configures all the different icons you can make. So let's say you make 30 different icons, but you want them all to move as a single unit. You can put all those inside that group, and you can just move the group around your screen. So let's say you're used to having your buffs over here, but you decide that, well, I don't want them over here anymore. Stick them all inside of a group and move them on this side, just because you want to. That's fine. The other one you'd want to do is a text. A text is kind of neat because it lets you know exactly in words, whatever words you want. And you've seen things like killing blows, things like that, where you get a pop-up on the screen, but yours got one that's pretty cool. And then things like that. I don't think he uses weak auras for his, but it's an example of some of the stuff you could do. Your target dies, you get a screen, text, hey, you killed this dude, hell yeah. And then you've got icons. Icons are the most basic. It's what you'll use for almost everything starting out. Icons are the simple thing to do. It's real easy. That's your go-to button, but it shows an icon, and you can change the icon to anything in WoW. Any icon you see, just like with your macros, where you have a macro list when you pull up macros, that'll show you change name icon. You'll have a list. You can go any one of these pictures you can use for this. So there's a lot of customizability with this, and you can do all that with icons. A progress bar, it's very straightforward. You're making a cast, your target's making a cast. You want to know that the cooldown on a particular spell you have on the boss. So you've got Flame Shock on their boss, and you want to know how long you have left for it. The progress bar is what that would be for. You want to see something as a visual cast timer. That's what that progress bar is for. And then import, that's any string that's made by anybody with weak auras. If they give you the string information, you can just instantly put it on your own weak auras, on your own UI, and have it there. You got to be careful with that, though. There's some strings that are dangerous. There's one recently where you downloaded the string and it opened a trade with the person next to you or person that opened a trade with you, and you just trade them all your gold and instantly trade it away. So be careful, read reviews, make sure you've kind of vetting what you're downloading or what you're putting into your UI, because it's just plain HTML, so you don't have to download anything to do a string. You just would paste the straight HTML in this box, and you'd have that same weak ore that somebody else has. It's really neat. But today we're just going to do a couple things, like I said, Stormstrike rather, and Lava Lash. And we're going to do that with just a couple icons, and I'm going to show you a variation with Lava Lash that makes things a little bit easier for some things you might want to know. But here we go. The icon, when you click that, you immediately get a new box. This box can move anywhere. This box has coordinates. When you're holding it, it has coordinates of where it's at on the screen relative to the center. Here's the lock. That's the center. You can move this lock. It can be moved. It is in the display settings. You can move this lock here. But center, it's always the best way to go because you know right where you're at all the time. That's what I always use. So you can move these coordinates that you see here by using the offset, X and Y offsets. And so you can get a very clean setup very quickly without much work. Just knowing, hey, I want it zeroed, and I want it dead center, and I want it X below, and I want the next one right next to it. And then you can always adjust the width and the height of these without any stress at all. It's real easy. We're just going to leave this at this size for now, just so you guys can see it fairly well. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bigger, just so you guys can see it. So that's the icon we're making today, and then when we get it done, we'll shrink it down a little so you can see it in action. The display is the basics. It's what you see. The display is what you see on your screen, and that's all it is. You can have a few different options: the progress, the remaining time of timer on a spell or a trigger, and the trigger is what makes everything happen. And then the total, the maximum duration of the timer, the highest possible value it can achieve. And then the name, you could have the name of the aura or spell. That's normally not needed for many things in WoW, but if it's there, you know, and you want to use it, you can use it, of course. And the icon associated with that particular spell is what you'll want to use most of the time. That's basically all you'll ever really need, and that's what I recommend to use. The stacks counts the number of stacks that you have on your target or on yourself, depending on how your trigger is set up. So let's say you want to know how many stacks your Death Knight, you want to know how many stacks that your diseases have stacked up to. If you're taking the talent, you can do that by using the stacks. And then there's a custom function, which it's a lot more complex. We won't get into that, but that's definitely some options. There's a couple of things you can do with the display. We'll come back to it once we've set up the trigger for some final tuning. But the trigger is the meat and potatoes. It's what makes everything happen. So you can't do anything without your trigger. It is letting the bullet out of the gun. That's what the trigger does, and that's really the mechanical function of anything that you're doing is inside the trigger. The load right here is just when. It's the when. What is to have this true or false? So if you want something to be true in combat, you would click in combat. You want it to be true. So you want to see this when you're in combat, or if you're in a pet battle. Not sure what you're going to use that for, but go ahead, have some fun. And then I only want it to happen when I'm on my shaman, because that's what I'm playing right now. And I only want to have it when I'm in enhancement, because no other spec has Stormstrike. That's what we're going to be doing, is on Stormstrike. And those are some options you have there. You can also do it based on talents you've selected. So any talent that you might have in that spec, they're all here. It's all right here, and it's real nice. It makes things real clean. You can also double click it to see if you have any of these talents selected. You can do that with every item here. So any spec and any specific classes. So you have multi-choice if you need it there. But we're going to do shaman, and we're going to do enhancement. And you can also do it with your races for your racials and faction if you're horde or alliance. For example, if you're horde, you're not going to see bloodlust unless you make sure to add the secondary spell ID if you're using heroism. So there's some different things you want to add, and make sure you know all the conditions where you would want to see what you're seeing on your screen are true. If you just always want to see it, you would take everything off and just make sure it's in combat. The problem with that is if you're making a weak aura for shaman for Stormstrike and you're on your warrior, you don't want to see Stormstrike on your warrior. So you would want to make sure that that's all set up nice and neat for yourself. Actions, there's a lot of things you can do with actions. You can have a chat message, you can have it whispered to yourself, to another player, you can have it shouted out in raid, things like that going on. It's real nice, a lot of fine tuning you can do. Then play a sound. This is probably my favorite feature because audio cues are a little bit easier to recognize than just visual. So Thunderstrike, I'm not going to do an audio cue because you use it so often that it would be a little bit tedious. You'd hear it far too often to make it enjoyable. And then there's a few other things you can do, like button glow. You can make the button glow when it procs, things like that. Very nice stuff. And that's a real simple process. You just hit button glow and then choose the frame. So see how it highlights in green here? You can just choose that frame and it's all set up. It's got the name, it's weak auras, and then this is new. That's the name of this. If I change the name here, which you'll always want to keep these real organized for yourself so you know what's going on. Hit enter. It is now named Stormstrike, and I choose this, and see Stormstrike right there. So that's how you know which frame you're targeting for sure. Another thing you can do is animations. If I want to know when it is procced, you can do preset and it'll flash, or it can bounce, or pulse. All kinds of fun stuff you can do there. Spiral is always an interesting one. Seems a little bit too much for me. But there's a lot of things you can do there. There's also custom you can set up. And again, this gets really complex, so don't do it if you don't want to. And then I'll leave that alone for now, but we're going to go back to our trigger, which again, this is the meat and potatoes. This is not an aura. An aura is a spell, a debuff, or a buff. So it's a buff or a debuff that you have on you, yourself, your target, your buddies, anything like that. That's an aura. So anything like if you have flame shock on your enemy, that's a debuff on your enemy. If you have a curse on yourself, that would be an aura that's on yourself. So those are auras. What you'll normally be using to make cooldown stuff is going to be status. Status is kind of all there's a lot of them, but there's action usable. So for example, anytime a specific action is usable, your icon would show, and you're going to attach that to Stormstrike in this scenario. And it changed the icon right there, and if you see right here, that's how you know it's registered what you're talking about. It'll show it here. A lot of times it'll pull up with the spell ID as well. If you want to require it to have a valid target, so you can only see the icon when you're targeting a target that is valid to hit, you can press this option. And then inverse would show it only when it's on cooldown. But in this case, we want to know when the action is usable. And then if you hit inverse, it would only show it when the action is not usable, because that's our starting point. So we're going to leave it there. We're not too worried about charges here. We don't need to know when it has less than one charge for Stormstrike. You pretty well spam Stormstrike, but that's definitely something you can play with if you want to. And then that's set up. That's pretty much it. Anytime now that it's set with trigger, anytime that Stormstrike is usable, action is usable, it's true. This icon will show, and that is the meat and potatoes of this icon. And then you've got going back to tweaking it down a little. You can just squeeze it down like this if you want to, or again you can use the display panel and change the width and height as you please. We're going to set it 80/80 just so you can still see it well. And there's 80/80, and then we're going to go straight down. Make sure it's centered out there. And now we've got this Stormstrike right here. We might want to knock it up a bit, so we'll take it up to 140. Okay, there we go. So now when I'm in combat, based on the load situation, and I'm on a shaman, and that shaman is spec enhancement, no matter what character I log into, if that is an enhancement shaman, it will load this icon when Stormstrike is usable. We've done all that already, and that's already set up. It was real straight and simple. But let me go ahead and show it to you in action. So we're going to go ahead and pop this dummy, and Stormstrike is still usable. Stormstrike again, there it disappears. There is no Stormstrike usable. Stormstrike's now usable again. Ta-da! There it goes. Real simple, cut and dry. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to set up a Lava Lash the same way but we're going to add a variation onto it. So you get to see everything done again. It's real short and sweet, so I'll just make it quick this time. But then I'm going to show you a very slim and kind of neat way to know when to hit Lava Lash. There's a lot of shamans that have a problem of knowing when to hit it, and we're going to fix that for you. Part of Lava Lash and knowing when to hit it is making sure that you have Flame Shock on your target already, because if you're using Lava Lash and you don't have Flame Shock, you're losing a lot of DPS just because it buffs the damage that Lava Lash is doing. And it also spreads Flame Shock, so it's really important. So we're going to go ahead and make a new icon. And this is going to be called Lava Lash. Okay, and then the display is good to go. We're just going to leave it there for right now. And if you ever want to see all your icons all at once on your screen so you know where everything's at, you can click this loaded. See next to loaded, there's a view toggle. Go ahead and click that and it'll show everything you have. Show it right here so you know where to place stuff. I'm going to set it just off to the right here so it's easy to kind of notice. And then that's good to go as far as that's concerned. And then our trigger, it's going to be, again, a status. And it's going to be an action usable, but we're going to have it Lava Lash. And you can see it popped up with the icon. Change the icon here. If you're ever having a problem with these icons showing, you can reload and it'll pop right back in. Sometimes Weak Auras has an issue where it'll kind of turn the icons into little question marks. The next part is, so that's set. You're good to go. You want it loaded in combat. You want it set on a shaman and in enhancement. And then you're good to go. And then once again, we'll set it to go ahead and when we're in a situation where we do not have Lava Lash on our target, we want this to disappear. So Weak Auras has a lot of customizability. Again, you can add a secondary trigger. So if both triggers are true, you'll see the icon. If one trigger is true, you will not see the icon. And if no triggers are true, you will not see the icon. So it's very much and or only. So you have a lot of different logic options there. So we're going to add, this is all set. Lava Lash will show now anytime that it's available. And when the action is usable, it'll show here. If we add a second trigger, we have trigger 2 now. And this is set. Required for activation is all triggers. So we want both the first trigger, which is the action is usable, and the second trigger, which we're going to go ahead and define that here. This is going to be an aura because we're tracking a debuff on our target. This aura is going to be named Flame Shock because that's the aura we're tracking on our target. You can also add additional if you want to see if other things are on your target already. And then the unit is our target because we want to know if it's on the thing that we're attacking already or not. And it is a debuff. It is not a buff to that character. It is a debuff to whatever your target is if it's Flame Shock that is on it. And then we want to make sure it's only tracking our Flame Shock because it will track other Shaman's Flame Shock, and we only want to track ours to make sure that ours is already on it. So now that is all set. Trigger 2 is set. It is an aura. It is Flame Shock. It is on our target. It is a debuff, and it's only ours that it's tracking. And that's good. It's good to go. You can also do something like if there's less than 5 seconds remaining on it, then it will take that away too. So there's options there. You have plenty of things you can do to make it a little bit more, again, customized. If you have 5 seconds left on your Flame Shock, it might be time to refresh it. And you can get real complex. You can go into things like elemental fusion, and you want to know if you have your super procced Flame Shock on the target or not. You can set up a Weak Aura to go over all of that, and I'll be happy to show you guys some videos with that in it too. We'll get into some real fun stuff here. But that takes care of that. Everything is good to go. So now this icon will only show if Flame Shock is on the target and we're in combat. And so let's test this out real quickly. I'm gonna run over here. I'm going to show you guys once without Flame Shock. We're in combat, and it is not showing here. Then we go ahead and put our Stormstrike, and it's disappeared. Now if we put Flame Shock on our target, we have a Lava Lash. It says it's okay to use Lava Lash now. We have Flame Shock up. So Flame Shock's up, and you're good to go. And now we have no Lava Lash, and it procced, and no Lava Lash, and it's gone. Flame Strike is on. Lava Lash is on cooldown, so it's not there. Again, Lava Lash on cooldown. Flame Shock on the target. It's not showing. And then it's still up now because we have procs. Then we're going to let Flame Shock fall off the target so you can see it disappear. Here it goes. And it's gone. So no Flame Shock, no Lava Lash, even though we have charges. But that lets you make sure that you're never using Lava Lash if you don't have Flame Shock already on your target. And that takes care of that. If you guys have any other ideas for some weak ores you'd like to see, go ahead and let me know. Put it down below in the comments, and we'll make some really cool stuff to make sure you guys have everything you need to play at peak perfection. I'm not a perfect raider. I have no intentions of trying to act elitist. So if anything's wrong, just let me know. It's not a big deal. I'll fix it real quick. And we look forward to doing a lot of really cool videos for you guys. We'll see you around.